Okay, so this is the third video, and just before I include more notes, I just want to do a couple of corrections. I did some further reading onto this transformer and found out that I did say I think it actually goes all the way up to 20,000 volts in increments, so it increases voltage from this transformer to the second one and then on to the third one, but it's actually I believe between 4,000 to 5,000 volts. So that's one of the things I just wanted to correct, that's the increment in voltage between these three transformers. Also I've now actually removed the PCB. I'm just going to point out which points you need to desolder, because there was one point missing in my previous video. So the points that you need to desolder, so if you look on the right hand side, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 on this side. So basically you have these 2 points for the fluorescent tube that goes sideways, and then you have this point which goes for the fluorescent tube goes around the circle. Okay, and these two are basically the light sensor that sits inside inside instrument cluster to see if it's how dark it is outside, and based on that it actually increases and decreases the intensity of the fluorescent tubes. So on the right hand side you've got 5 points to desolder. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And on the left hand side you have 4, which is this one here. 1, 2, did I just say 4? It's actually 3. 1, 2 and 1 at the back, 3. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Okay, so you've got the tube going like this, and this one is for the other tube. Yeah, so 3 on this side and 5 on this side. 5 because of the 2 additional for the light sensor. Now that's correct. Okay, so at this point basically I desoldered, and you have to actually desolder them very carefully because it is a double-sided circuit. So you've got circuit running on the other side, so you don't want to damage any of the soldering points. So once you've done that, you can just basically pry a little bit very gently, as long as it's very clean. These points are very clean, you can just lift it up. Okay, so I'm just going to describe a little bit what was underneath. Just going to put it there. So these are the fluorescent tubes I was talking about. So you can see there's the connector, there's a connector there, and then for the round tube you have 2 connectors, these 2. And the light sensor I was referring to are these 2. And then you have a connector there and connector there. Now, as you can see, these fluorescent tubes are inserted from the front, which is why you have to desolder them to get to the transformer. Okay, now I'm going to include a little bit more notes before I start soldering this back. So I'm just going to pause and clear up the space a little bit. Okay, so I moved the rest of the instrument cluster out of the way. So this is the PC that I was trying to repair, and this is the transformer that we want to remove. And remember, there are some other issues as well where this might not actually fix the problem. This is only in this particular instrument cluster. This is going to fix the intensity issue on the inner tube, the round one, because basically it's very dimmed, and the instrument cluster keeps on reporting instrument cluster defective. So this is the one that I'm going to be replacing. There's one more thing I just need to point out. Okay, so I just paused the video to go and get hold of the parts that arrived from eBay. Basically, this is the transformer that's arrived, and it came with this, I think it's a MOSFET, but I've looked up at the data sheet, so this is something I'm not going to replace right away, but I'll check if this transformer fixes the issue, and if it does, then I'll leave this, but if not, I will change the transistor as well. there's a mixed opinion on this. Some people are recommending that actually you change it anyway, and some people are saying change this first and then change this. So I'm just going to try to change this first and then see what happens and then come back to this one. The other thing I want to point out is that this particular transistor, which is a BUZ, so that's Bravo Uniform Zulu 102 Sierra. So that's the part number. There are two of them in the instrument cluster. So if they are on the PCB above, on top, basically it's these two here. But the eBay kit only comes with one. I presume only one of them goes faulty, maybe. But the opinion is that when you're actually replacing these, replace actually both of them. So I'll see if this transformer doesn't fix the issue. I will be replacing both of them. So it was basically at this point it was time to replace this transformer, which I have already desoldered, and I'm just going to include some notes on that. Okay, so let's turn this around. Okay, so we're looking on this side. Okay, so that's where the transformer sits. So I'll flip this, and this is basically now the right hand side, and on the right hand side you have these 4 points, and you have 3 points on this side, and desoldering these basically will remove the transformer. So I've already desoldered them, so I'm just gonna turn this around and take the transformer out. Okay, so there's the transformer, which has been desoldered, and there's some differences that I just want to quickly explain a little bit about. So this is the transformer, that is the original one, and I'm just going to focus in, so let's turn this around. So this is the transformer, and this is the new one. Now what you're going to find as a difference, from the top they look reasonably similar in size and stuff, but when you turn them around it's interesting, because this one, the original, has 3 pins on one side, so you can see 3 pins on one side, and you have 4 pins on the other. Just going to focus this here. And whereas the new one, if I lift this up, you can see that it only has 4 pins. And that's simply because even though it's the same part, this pin on the original transformer doesn't actually get used. These two are actually joined on the circuit anyway, and these two are joined. So the pin configuration is the same. Now, because it's a transformer, and the point of the transformer is either increments, so it takes small amount of voltage and increases it, or does some other variation, but there's definitely a difference in voltage on either side of a transformer, which means you can't just plug this on any side, and that's the bit I want to cover just here. So what I want to point out is on this transformer, these 3 pins here, they are high voltage. So this is the output, the 3 pins, and the 4 pins is your input. And so on this side, because obviously there's no 2 pins and 3 pins, as you can see, it's just 4 pins. To identify, you just turn it around, and the high voltage actually says high voltage, which is quite nice of the company who manufactured it, because it's easier to know which side is the high voltage. But what I've also done is I've brought up a PDF document, and so I'm just going to include some information from there. Yeah. So you can see here you've got the 3 pins, and that's high voltage, and you've got your secondary voltage, which is your 4 pins. So that's basically it, and there's our high voltage transformer already installed in the instrument cluster. This is a document that didn't come with the purchase. I just had to look it up. I was looking for the data sheet actually for the transformer and ended up finding this. I thought I'll include this in the video because then you know which side is high voltage and which side is your secondary voltage. Okay, so if you then look at the instrument cluster, you can see that this is how this thing is going to go. Oh, sorry, wrong way around. Turn it around like this. So the bit that you want to make sure is not which way the B is facing, but which way is the high voltage is facing. So as you can see, even in the diagram here, you have high voltage just above the motor for one of the control arms, and there's a high voltage on the inside, and there's your high voltage. And if I lift this up, you should see 3 pins in there, and there they are. Okay, and it is a double-sided circuit, so when you solder it, you have to make sure that the solder goes to both sides, because you can see it's taking there's a track going here, which is powering the tube. If you look on the other side, you can see there is bits of circuit here as well that are being connected to the pins, so just have to make sure. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to solder everything back, and I'll then include further information. Thank you for watching my video.